You're not gonna believe this, but I swear every word is true. I still laugh when I think about it, but back then I was about one more HOA encounter away from turning my ranch into a paintball battlefield. See, I own a ranch, a real one, not some Instagram hobby farm with 1,000 acres of rolling hills, creeks, cattle, and a family legacy that goes back farther than most of those new neighbors' memories. I always figured if something kept me up at night, it'd be a busted water line or maybe a calving heifer in the dead of winter, not a couple of wannabe mall cops on a golf cart. But let me back up a sec. It all started when this brand new cookie-cutter development called Whispering Pines Estates sprouted up along my southern fence like mushrooms after a rainstorm. You know the type. Identical beige houses, pristine lawns, and folks who think living within shouting distance of a cow makes them country. I guess that's how you end up with a homeowners association that acts like their rules apply to the whole county. The first time I saw trouble brewing, it didn't even register. One of their fancy little golf carts logo and all was parked just a hair inside my fence, right under this old oak tree that shaded more cattle than I can count. I figured new folks, new confusion. I just waved, but the two guys inside, decked out in tight polo shirts and mirrored sunglasses like they were extras in a bad cop show, didn't even crack a smile. They just sat there trying to look important. Next week, same spot, same golf cart, same two fellas, one older with a permanent scowl. I started calling Ranger Rick and his buddy, a skinny kid I dubbed Deputy Dog. This time I strolled over, keeping it friendly. Afternoon, fellas, just so you know, that fence there is my property line. HOA land stops at that old survey marker. I even pointed it out half hidden in the grass. Ranger Rick didn't look up. We're aware, he grunted. Just keeping an eye on things, community safety. I almost laughed. Well, this is private property, and we run cattle here. Wouldn't want your cart to end up in a stampede. Deputy Dog pipes up. We're allowed to be here, for observation. I wanted to ask, allowed by who your HOA rule book, but I kept my cool and just asked them again politely to stick to their own side. Ranger Rick just scoffed and drove off like he was humoring the village idiot. And I'll tell you, that's when I knew this was going to get real stupid real fast. I walked back up to the porch where Grandpa was sharpening his old knife, just listening. When I finished, he spit into Mom's flowers and muttered, "Sounds like they need learning." If you ever met my grandpa, you know that meant things were about to get interesting. He didn't say anything more, but there was this glint in his eye, the same one he'd get before tearing down a stubborn tractor engine. Whispering Pines didn't know it yet, but they were about to tangle with the wrong kind of country logic. Over the next couple of weeks, the situation went from annoying to straight-up disrespectful. It wasn't just the golf cart anymore. Sometimes a white SUV with the same security logo would pull up and park even deeper onto our land. Those two made it their personal mission to occupy the shade under our tree binoculars and clipboards in hand like they were on a safari, and my cows were some rare exhibit. I put up huge yellow no trespassing signs, couldn't miss them if you were blindfolded. Next day, one was torn down, and the other had a muddy boot print stamped right on it. That's when I stopped being polite and started taking pictures. Vehicles, plates, times, everything. I tried the official route, found the HOA president's email, some guy named Arthur Prendergast, and sent him a detailed note with photos. I figured, be clear, be firm. Let's handle this neighborly. A week passed. Crickets. Then finally he replied. Not an apology, not even a hint of sorry. Just the most condescending letter I've ever read, basically saying their security was for the tranquility of all residents, and if I had a problem, maybe I should better delineate my property. Like the fence, the markers, the signs, and the cows weren't enough. I showed Grandpa, and he just grinned. Guess we'll give him the kind of line he won't forget. I swear it was like they wanted a fight. A few days later, while I'm working calves with Miguel, my best hand here comes the HOA SUV bouncing right up to their usual spot. The noise spooked a mother cow, and just like that, half an hour of careful work was wasted as she bolted with her calf. I stormed over. What in the Sam Hill are you doing? Ranger. Rick barely blinked, just said, "Standard patrol." I told him flat out this is private property. You're interfering with my ranch, and if you don't leave, I'm calling the sheriff. That got his attention. They left, but not before sitting there for another 5 minutes with the engine idling like they were daring me to do something. That night, Grandpa was cleaning his shotgun, which was always his way of signaling something big was about to go down. He finally said, "Time to show these city slickers what a boundary really means." The next morning, he was out at dawn digging through old irrigation gear, hauling out rusty sprinklers, pipes, and timers. "What's the plan?" I asked. He grinned like a fox. "A little soil moisture enhancement. Call it targeted landscaping. Now, if you ever need to discourage someone from parking somewhere wet clay and hidden rocks work wonders." Grandpa had me keep logging every incident, snapping photos, and marking down every time they crossed the line. Meanwhile, he spent days measuring tilling and laying a sneaky little irrigation setup right under the oak, just where our uninvited guests like to park. We set it up so 3 industrial sprinklers hidden in tall grass would kick on hard at random times during the day. Underneath, Grandpa made sure the ground was extra soft with just enough rocks and roots under the surface to make getting traction a nightmare. When we finished, I swear you couldn't tell anything had changed unless you looked real close. That night, as luck would have it, a summer rain gave the whole area a nice, muddy primer. Next morning, right on cue, the HOA SUV rolled up. Ranger Rick and Deputy Dog stepped out, no idea what was coming. At exactly 10:35, the sprinklers erupted, blasting the SUV with muddy water like a fire hose. They scrambled, trying to start the engine, but the more they gunned it, the deeper they sank into Grandpa's homemade bog. It was a thing of beauty. When the water finally shut off, they were stuck up to the axles, both of them covered in mud and looking like they'd lost a wrestling match with a pig. Grandpa and I stood on our side of the fence, barely keeping straight faces. 20 minutes later, Prendergast himself showed up in a spotless black Lincoln, stormed over in his fancy golf clothes, and started yelling about vandalism and damage to his security vehicle. Grandpa just leaned on the fence and said, "Sir, this is private land. We're just irrigating. If you parked in the mud, well, that's your business." Prendergast tried to call the sheriff, probably thinking we'd be in trouble. But Deputy Miller, a local who knows us well, took one look at the muddy mess and shook her head. "Mr. Prendergast, your SUV is clearly on their land. If you got stuck, that's on you. I'd advise you and your folks to respect property lines." She even warned them about trespassing tickets. You know what I mean. Justice doesn't always come with handcuffs. Sometimes it comes with a muddy pair of shoes and a bruised ego. Prendergast was steaming, but he had to call a tow truck, which took 2 hours and half the neighborhood watching the circus. Grandpa called it the salvage operation and gave a running play-by-play just to amuse himself. Not long after we got a letter from some HOA lawyer demanding we pay for damages to their precious SUV. Our lawyer, Ben Tracy, fired back with photos logs and a counterclaim for trespassing and sign damage, even offering drought-resistant landscaping advice just to twist the knife. Funny thing is, word spread around Whispering Pines. Suddenly, their security stopped parking anywhere near our place. The mud incident became legendary, and I heard folks at the feed store joking about barbarian lands and HOA patrols. Even their own residents started grumbling about the whole mess and questioning why they were paying for security that couldn't even stay out of a mud puddle. Meanwhile, Grandpa had me plant a row of nasty, thorny rose bushes right along our side of the fence, making a living barrier that not even a stubborn SUV could cross. New steel posts, new signs, and a whole lot of peace. Never saw another Whispering Pines patrol on my land again. It's almost funny how fast a dumb parking dispute can turn into all-out war when folks forget to respect boundaries. But this was never just about parking. It was about respect, about knowing where your land ends and your neighbor's begins. Prendergast and his crew thought we'd back down. They didn't count on Grandpa and his stubborn streak. Sometimes the best revenge is a little mud, a lot of planning, and never letting a bully set the rules on your turf. So yeah, that's how Grandpa's Landmines put an end to the HOA's little power trip. You don't always need a lawsuit to set things right. Sometimes you just need a clever plan, a bit of patience, and the kind of grit you only get from working land that's been in your family forever. And in the end, maybe, just maybe, a muddy mess is what it takes for folks to learn a lesson. What do you think? Did we go too far, or was it just the right amount of payback? Let me know in the comments. I read every story, so hit that like, share your wildest HOA tales, and don't forget, keep your fences mended and your sprinklers at the ready. You never know when you'll need them.